kind of like a baked potato soup. We're going to use both russet and red potatoes in it. Both give 2 different textures to it. And then we're going to have a ham and cheese on pretzel kind of toasted sandwich and some homemade granola bars. So we're going to start by toasting up our onions and getting them sauteed here for the base of our soup. And then we will get our oats toasting up for our soup, for our granola bars. On there, we're going to make some kind of granola bars 2 ways. I always like to make like a big double batch of them when I make them up. That way we have the ones that we kind of like and the ones that the littles like at the same time. So we're going to give this onion a nice good dice for it. Now for our soup, I'm not going to be pureeing all of the base of the broth, but I'm going to be pureeing some of it. And that's going to give it a really great kind of thicker texture to it, but also leaving chunks of the potatoes as well. So get these here. And then I realized that I didn't set my olive oil out. So let me grab that. We're going to grab a little bit of olive oil here, and then we're going to give a nice little, turn our pan on and let it saute here. And I think I forgot my garlic too. I was rushing to get all of my groceries, some of my groceries. I still have a lot of my groceries still sitting out. I did an Amazon Fresh delivery, so we'll have a little video of that, kind of a restock of the week, because it always surprises me, again, how much we eat through every single week. And I'm like, where does the food go? Let's get our onions kind of tossed in here to saute up. Nice. And then let me grab my garlic out of the fridge, because you definitely want garlic in this soup because it's going to add such a great flavor to that kind of baked potato. We're going to get, I want enough to make like a tablespoon or so of minced up garlic. So a good bit of cloves. And then we're going to mince it up. And once our onions have a nice kind of golden caramelization on it, then we'll toss these garlic in it. So once I've got this minced up, we're going to then put some parchment paper down on our baking sheet, and we're going to lay out 4 cups of old-fashioned oats to toast up in our oven. Because when you're making granola bars, you want to use toasted oats because they're going to make a much nicer flavored granola bar. If you use untoasted oats, you're going to have a raw oat flavor in your granola bar, which isn't as nice as a toasted oat flavor. So it just gives you kind of just a nicer end flavor on there. It just mellows out the oats. So let's get these. There we go. So those will be ready to toss in just a little bit. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And I'm going to lay out a sheet of parchment paper. You could always do it on the baking sheet, but the parchment paper will make it a lot easier to transfer these into a bowl. And then we're done.
How was your daughter's game?
It was a tough game. It was a tough loss. It was a long drive. She played well. It was very, very cold. She is determined. We played the same opponent. So in the GA, it's the Girls Academy Soccer League. You play every opponent twice, once on their turf and then once on our turf. So she has already in a game plan of what she's going to do different when you go up against. They were the national champions last year for this age group, and they have a couple players on the national team. And she was like, she picked them out, and one of them was paired up against her the whole time. And she's like, this is what, she's like, I'm going to have more physical contact. I'm going to be on her. I'm going to be that. She was like, her whole game strategy, she was going through her head. So it was fun to watch her, and it was really, really cold. But it was always exciting to see. I think I told her, I said, this is the fiercest competition she's ever played. And I think it was like really exciting for her to see something like this. We're going to add 4 cups of oats. I'm using old-fashioned. You can also use quick oats if you want to. Just I wouldn't use steel cut oats because they give it a really crunchy texture to the granola bars.
And who won game night last night?
Game night last night was won by my husband, but I will say the victory was sweet in the sense that he beat out my son and my father-in-law, and simply of their own making. So my son, so we play on teams. So my daughter, my oldest daughter and I are on a team, my husband and my middle daughter on our team, and then Torrin and my father-in-law on our team. And they all kind of play on there, so we take turns with it because the little boys aren't old enough to play yet. And he made a wager on there where he had to bet, like he bet all of my husband's coins and a mini game, and he ended up losing. So my husband then won 100 coins, and that was the deciding factor of was it he won a star, and that's what won him the game on there. So if he hadn't done that, he wouldn't won this extra star. And then because that's what I told him, I was like, oh, risky bet, and you lost. Okay. We're going to spread our oats out here, and we're going to toast these up in the oven at 350 for about 10 minutes on here, and we'll give them a good spread out for it. Now, if you're going to you can do these at varying temperatures, just adjust the time for it, but 350 is kind of the basic for it. Just enough to get out that flavor. You're not going to really see that much change in color, but it's going to do a lot to change the flavor.
And those old-fashioned oats?
Yes, old-fashioned oats. You can also use quick oats. Just don't use steel cut, because steel cuts are going to give you really crunchy granola bars that will not have a great texture to it. Now, with these granola bars, I do a mixture of half oats and half Rice Krispies, which kind of lighten up the texture so they're not as dense and heavy. And I think it works. It makes it really nice. Okay, give this a nice little mix around. I think we'll add in our garlic here and let that saute up. And then we'll start getting our potatoes kind of prepped up here. And we're going to work on our sauce and our glaze, I will say. It's kind of our binder for our granola bars here in just a second. So let's get our base for our potato soup here.
And what's in the pot so far?
So far, we just have onions, garlic, and some olive oil. So it's kind of our aromatic vegetables. And I set out actually a little bit of celery, so I want to throw that in there. That's just going to give us a little bit more flavor to the base of it. It just adds just a little bit of extra without changing too much of the, the texture and color and base of this soup. So I'm going to just slice them up, and I'm going to dice my celery because this is an aromatic veggie. I want this to go in before my potatoes. And we're going to do it nice and small so we have nice little bits of it. And we're going to keep the leaves on it as well because those have great flavor. A little bit more mild, but still great. And then the very tips are dried out, so I always like to toss those. Get this in. And then for my russet potatoes, I'm going to peel the skin off of those and then cube them up and put them in there. My red potatoes, I'm going to keep the skin on them because that skin is more delicate and will add a nice pop of color and a great texture to the soup. Okay, let's get that in there sauteing. And then I've got 3 russets, and we're going to just give these a quick peel. The skin, reason why you're going to peel these off is this skin will not break down. It will just get chewy and stringy in your soup and won't add a great texture. So you're going to peel it off. But I love the russets because it's going to give you a nice texture for the base of the soup because we are going to be pureeing part of it. And since it is a fluffier base, it's not as waxy as the red potato, it will blend up nice and smooth. Versus the red potatoes will actually keep their shape a lot better. And so you'll get those nice potato chunks in it. Instead of just being a smooth kind of bisque-like, we're going to have both the texture of it and a nice smooth bisque. So best of both worlds. Let's get these. Get them peeled up here just nicely. Perfect. We'll get rid of our little skins here. And then we're going to just dice these up. I'm going to dice them up pretty small. That way they'll get tender fairly quickly so I can blend them up sooner rather than later. But if you want to, you can always cut them a little bit larger and then just wait a little bit longer. And for these, because we're not making with mashed potatoes, I'm always like, keep them in even, size. But with this, since we are blending them and it doesn't matter if they kind of disintegrate into the broth because that's what we want to begin with, their shape doesn't matter so much because we will be kind of pureeing them and having them kind of turn more into a thick bisque-like texture. Now I have 4 red potatoes, but I might not use all of them. We'll just see. I always say potatoes, when you get them cutting, they always make way more than you think. Let me give my carrots and onions and garlic a nice little spin. I'm going to turn it down to about a 5 now that we've got some good caramelization. I don't know why I said carrots. Celery, onions, and garlic. I'm just, you know why? Because most of the time when I'm making a soup, I make like a mirepoix or I have a base that always has carrots in it. But carrots don't quite, the flavor profile, the sweetness of the carrots don't really go with the base of this soup. And so I omitted them, but I'm so used to always putting a carrot in because it is such a lovely aromatic vegetable for a soup base, but not in this soup. It's just too sweet. So stick with celery. You could also do leeks, kind of throw in some other ones. Although, I'm thinking about doing almost like a sweet potato bisque soup, and carrots would be lovely in that. I think that would be nice. Grab these in here. And we're going to let them saute up for a second. I'm going to give this a nice little stir, mix it around. Oops, I popped an onion out. And then we'll let it get a little bit of heat, and then I'm going to add in some spices and then some broth, and then we're going to let that simmer for a little bit. And then we'll add in kind of the rest of our ingredients in a little bit. But while we're waiting for that to saute for a second, let's get our base for our granola bars going. So we're going to melt 1 stick of butter with a cup of brown sugar and 2/3 cup of honey. Now with this, you're going to let it come to a boil and you're going to wait for about 30 seconds to a minute of the boil time. You just have to be careful not to overcook this mixture because you'll go from getting a chewy granola bar to a crunchy granola bar, which there's nothing wrong with a crunchy granola bar, but a chewy granola bar is much better. But it goes along the concept of making candy. When you boil your base for too long, it hardens faster. So once you get to a nice boiling point, like you see the boiling and the movement, 30 seconds to a minute, remove it from the heat. We're going to add in, so I'm going to wait until my butter has a nice base on the bottom. Then I'm going to add in a cup of brown sugar and 2/3 cup of honey. I'm doing a double recipe of my granola bars. I do have this recipe available for my members out there, but for that recipe card. So this is a double, but we will post this video on there so you can always watch and recreate this recipe as well. But I like to do a double because if we're going through the work of toasting the oats, and I do 2 different flavors. I'm going to be doing my basic one, which the little kids really love, and then I have this kind of a nut and seed, which we love as well. We'll get our little onions and celery that are kind of hanging right up here at the top. There we go. Perfect. Okay. While we're waiting on that butter to go, let's add in some spices. We're keeping the spices for this pretty simple because it is kind of just like a potato-y soup. We're going to use a little bit of thyme, about a half a teaspoon of dried thyme. If you're going to use fresh thyme, you can use a little bit more, up to a teaspoon of it. We're going to use about a teaspoon of dried oregano. Give it a little mix in here. Sprinkle it around. And then I'm going to use about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then just a couple shakes of garlic salt. We're going to be using chicken bouillon as the main seasoning, like saltiness for our soup, but a little bit of garlic salt adds that nice little flavor. I'm going to mix these in, and I'm going to let these spices have a chance to get a little bit of that direct heat before I add in our water and our bouillon to make the base part, and let these potatoes simmer. Okay, now that we have our base part of our butter at least melted down there, let's get our brown sugar in, and then our honey in, and then we'll go grab our oats out of the oven. So we need 1 whole cup of brown sugar. Again, this is going to make, a double batch, which is a 9 by 13 inch of granola bars that are pretty thick. So 1 whole cup of brown sugar, and then 2/3 cup of honey, which is going to be about the rest of this honey. I told you last week I bought this nice big jar of local honey. It was a really big one. Loaded it up in the back of my car, and it shifted and fell out and cracked on my driveway. And I'm going to tell you right now, honey is very difficult to clean up. Honey filled with glass shards is very, very difficult to clean up because that honey does not want to release itself from the ground on there. And I was so sad. I was like, oh, that honey. And then it was so funny because we did a little video of it, and I was like, I swear I put it in the back of the car. I know I did. And then my husband pointed out in the little video that the jar of honey was resting precariously at the back of my car, and I had no way to defend myself. I know I just threw it in there, and he was like right next to the glass jar of jam as well, and I was like, what can I say? I tried to tell him it was Evie. Evie threw it in the car. It wasn't. It was me. Let me grab a spoon here, and we're going to mix our butter and our honey and our brown sugar together. Give it a nice little stir. Mix it up. And then once again, we get that nice little boil. Then we'll remove it from the heat. Again, 30 seconds to a minute of the boil. It takes a hot minute to get there, but just keep a watchful eye on it. You also, if you step away from it too long, it will boil over, and then you'll have a big sticky mess to clean up. Now, if you don't love honey in flavor, you can switch out the honey for either like agave or corn syrup. Those both kind of work in that same base for it. I really love the honey. I think it tastes lovely. So that's what I use as the base for it, but you can use those other kind of sticky bases. And the same thing, I love the butter in it, but coconut oil works as well. So we added in about a cup of water, and I'm going to scrape off the bottom here. Mix this off, and then I'm going to add in the rest, and then I'll get a nice big scoop of chicken bouillon in here to season this up, but little by little. And then we're going to let this simmer until those potatoes are nice and tender. Now we will be adding in some other potatoes and some ham in a little bit, but I want to get these going first because we're going to be pureeing most of these. There we go. Nice little mix around. Perfect. So about 4 cups of water or chicken stock if you have a box of that. And then I'm going to add a nice big scoop of chicken bouillon, which I believe I left in my fridge. So let me grab it. Well, you know what? We'll use vegetable bouillon because I believe I'm out of chicken bouillon. I'm going to make some roast chicken this week, and I'm going to make some more stock because my stock was so good last time that I was like, I need to make some more, but it's so yummy. Okay. We're going to do a nice big heaping spoonful in here. This is going to give the saltiness factor to our soup as well as a nice lovely flavor. Vegetable bouillon, chicken bouillon, both work well with it. And then mix it around. And then we're going to let this come up to a nice kind of simmer here. And I'm going to give this a nice little stir. And then I'm going to go grab a bowl out and get our these cooling because you want them off of your things so that the oats can cool down as much as possible before mixing them in. Let's do this big open bowl. Now, like I said, I do mine with the parchment paper because it is easier to transfer your toasted oats here into our bowl than trying to dump them out from the baking sheet. Just pick it up from the 4 sides and dump it in. And that will get rid of their kind of raw flavor of it, which makes it a nicer granola bar. So if you've ever made granola bars before and you've wondered why they don't taste the same, it's because you've got to toast those oats. Okay, we're going to stir here. You can see we're starting to get a nice little simmer around the edge. So there's our boil here. So now we're starting with our 30-second to a minute countdown. I'm going to stir it while we do it so that we kind of got that motion going. And then we'll remove it from the heat. So don't just turn off the heat, but you want to completely remove it from your burner. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And both of those are going to add some really great flavor to the granola bar.
How long do you toast the oats for?
For about 10 minutes at 350. Now, if you're cooking something else in the oven and you need to go a little bit hotter, you can do that. Just cut off a little bit of the time. Okay, that's been about 30 seconds or so. I'm going to remove it from the heat so you've got this nice little bubble forming. I'm going to pull it back. This is going to create our sticky syrup. And again, you don't want to overcook it or you're going to have crunchy granola bars instead of chewy ones. And grab my little measuring spoon over here. Teaspoon of salt. The salt makes it really just kind of cuts through the sweetness of everything and is nice and lovely. And then a teaspoon of vanilla. When you add the vanilla in here, it will make it bubble, which is always fun to watch. But I like to add it in it while it's still hot because using vanilla extract is like an alcohol base, so it will cook off that more alcohol flavor to it and leave a more mellow vanilla flavor behind. There we go. And you get a really strong vanilla scent right now. Beautiful. Okay. And then we're just going to let it, stir it so often. We'll let it cool a little bit. And then we'll we'll toss it into our oats in just a little bit. But you want it to cool because we're going to be mixing, and you don't want to use really, really hot stuff when you're mixing for it. I'm going to give my soup a little stir. And now I'm probably going to change to a spoon instead of tongs. It's not as easy. And then we're going to dice up our potatoes and our ham that we're going to go into it. But I'm not going to add those in yet.
Do you have a specific brand of vanilla that you buy?
You know what? Not really. I kind of get mine from all sorts of places, and I use a lot of different types for it. And so there isn't, one that I specifically love, but I did have this one. It's actually from like a local, I don't know what you call a vanilla distillery or something like that, but it's one here in Nashville. It was like Morning Star or something like that. But theirs was very, very like aromatic. It had a very like wonderful notes to it. And I have to say, I really like theirs. But vanilla is expensive. And I use a lot of vanilla. And when you bake a lot and you got a lot of kids and a big family, a lot of times I'll look for what's on sale on there. Now, I always use real vanilla versus like an imitation vanilla because it does, vanilla, a lot of times you also use it for the chemical reactions in baking, but it does make a big difference. So there is that aspect of it. But, whether it's McCormick or Tones, or I did just buy this bougie one because it was on sale for it. But I'm typically looking for like a good deal because they are, some have, different notes. But when you're baked up with a lot of other ingredients, you're not going to notice that. So to me, what's most economical really is, things, unless, it's one thing if you were going to make something where vanilla was supposed to be highlighted and you wanted to, that I could see having like a specialty one, but I don't do that. I'm simple. We're not going to mess with that stuff. Now, garlic salt. I'm going to tell you, I do have a favorite brand of garlic salt. Good old Lowry's. I've tried other brands. Just love it. I know. Haven't made the switch to garlic salt. Trust me. You're going to love it. Okay, what I'm going to do I'm going to add this, will add a little bit of flavor and texture to this, is we're going to toast up these potatoes and our ham in a skillet, which will add it back into our soup at the end, but it's going to add almost like this wonderful like roasted potato flavor to the soup. So let me grab this out. Put this right over here. I'm going to get a little bit of olive oil in here so that can start roasting up and cooking. And we'll get that. We'll get our potatoes going, and then I'm going to dice up some ham on there. So I have I just ended up using 3 red potatoes because we didn't need that many. And what we're going to do is we'll saute them off, just get a nice little crispy edge on them so that in our soup we have that nice little crisp to it, which will add a good flavor and texture. I'm going to give them a nice coating. And then lay them all flat. Okay. And then we'll cut up our ham in just a second and give this a nice little swirl around. And then we're going to add in 4 cups of Rice Krispies for it because, again, you're going to use half Rice Krispies, half toasted oats for this. And that just makes it to where your granola bars aren't so heavy. You could go all oats if you wanted to, but this lightens them up, and they already are a pretty like dense granola bar. This just makes a little bit nicer, less, heavy. There we go. So there's our 4 cups of Rice Krispies with our oats. Grab some of this out of the way. All right, Rooney. Are you looking for crumbs? And let's see. Which one do we want? We'll grab this one to mix. Actually, we can off. So I'm just going to mix them together and kind of just coat them up just a little bit so that you have them nice and evenly mixed. There we go. And then let's see how this is looking there. You can see it's already getting kind of, see how it's kind of thicker already on the back of my spoon. As it cools, it will thicken down. So when you're working with this, you can't let it completely cool because you need the granola and oats to be coated in it before you get there. Let's get our ham kind of sliced up. I'm going to save a couple slices for our sandwiches because we're going to use our leftover. We have 2 pretzel rolls left over from the other day. So we're going to use them to make a nice, lovely sandwich here. So we got them and we'll cut them in half. So but I'm going to slice up a couple slices of ham to go on them with some cheese. We'll toast them up lovely. And then the rest of the ham, I'm going to put in our soup for it. So it'll be like almost like a loaded baked potato, soup. There we go. We'll do about 2 slices. Yeah. Now I find that with the, we're going to cut off the little edges here. When I buy my ham, I used to always buy sandwich ham and then this, but now I just buy one big thing because it's cheaper and I can use it for so many different uses, in omelets, soups, sandwiches, and it has just a lot more versatility. And, and I love a good chunky piece of ham. It's kind of become a staple that I always have in my little, the meat and cheese drawer. I'm going to cube this up. Oh, you pay the piper. No, you want this one? That's for the sandwiches. You can have this one. 2, taking it out of the soup. See what I have to live with here. Okay. We'll get that ready. We'll toss this in and we'll toast that up for that in a little bit. See,
what kind of ham is it?
It is just I think this one is a smoked ham. Most of the time when I buy my ham, I try to avoid a sweet ham, mainly because I'm not a big fan of a sweet ham. But that way I have a bit more versatility what I'm going to use it with on there so it doesn't mess with the flavors on it too much for it. And you know me, I'm a salty girl. I like salt. I love garlic salt and salty things. Got our nice little fried edge on some of these potatoes coming through already. Flip them over. Beautiful. And again, we're not necessarily cooking them all the way through to complete tenderness, but really getting that crispy edge. Okay. Got that? Let's see how we are. Looking pretty good. I think we can probably, we'll wait just a little bit longer for it to kind of coat up on there. I'm going to get a bread knife. We can cut our pretzel rolls in half and we're going to toast them up here in just a second. These are so good. You can see they're just like a good classic yeast roll on there, but so soft, boiled and then baked in the oven. I will say when I make them, these are just like such a big family hit. We love them so much. And the next day, one of my favorite things to do with them is to toast them, a little bit of butter, make a little sandwich out of them. So good.
What brand of ham do you use?
You know what? I think this was just like the Publix ham. I'm not sure. I don't really pay that much. I just kind of grabbed the full one on there for it. Give this a nice little slip. I'm going to get my cubed ham in here now and give this a quick saute up with those potato slices. That way we can add them back into our soup and they'll have that a good kind of sear on them, because I want these potatoes to be a bit, we're going to blend a bit of them. And so we want that kind of nice richness to them. I'll turn down this heat just a smidge.
Can you go over what's in the pot?
Yes, so right here is our kind of our sticky base for our granola bars. This is made with 1 stick of butter, a cup of brown sugar, 2/3 cup of honey, and then we added in a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of vanilla. And we're gonna I'm gonna pour it over our base and then we'll mix it up. And you wanna work with it while it's still warm, because they'll set and be firm in our granola bars. And then I'm gonna stir and mix and coat these up. I know, the onions are getting the cameraman. I don't know how much longer he'll make it. Yeah. Okay, let's get these guys mixed up in here. Coat them up in that nice kind of sticky glaze. You want to make sure every bit gets coated. That way these will hold together well. I will say one thing that is very, very important when you're going to make granola bars using honey, make sure you like your honey. It's only 6 atoms. It's only happened to me once. But we once bought some honey, and I guess it must have been the flowers that those bees were pollinating and getting their nectar from, but it was such a weird tasting honey. It had a very it was just a very interesting flowery taste to it. But everybody was like, this is such a weird one. It took us a minute to realize it was the honey.
You gotta go clover or fruit.
Yeah, it was, the best honey we ever had was from this fruit orchard up in Kentucky. So good. It was like, it had such as like a sweetness to it, but not like a florally sweet, but a fruity sweetness. It was so good. And the cave honey was really good. The honey was not from inside the caves, but we got it when we went to Tuckaleechee Caves, and they got it there. They had like a honey place right next to it. Here we've got it nice and mixed up here. Looking good. Okay, let's check on our potatoes here. I'm going to see if they're soft and if we're ready to blend up some of them to make our little base. Grab a fork. And then I'm going to slide this off because we've got our ham and these potatoes nice and sauteed to where they'll have a great little texture to it. Okay, see if these are ready. Looks like we've got a good amount ready to blend. Perfect. And then we'll do I'm letting my granolas cool a little bit more to let those mix-ins kind of so that they don't melt as much. We're going to add in just a little bit of cream right now for the base of this. And then I'm going to blend it up about 1/4 of a cup. And I'm not going to blend all of it up, just a couple of those potato chunks. I'm going to use my small Ninja instead of my Vitamix. I'm going to turn this down nice and low because I don't want it to be a completely smooth soup. I want it to be kind of chunky and have a little bit of both. And this blending the potato with the base of this broth, but keeping the ham and my red potatoes out is going to ensure that I have good texture and flavor, and I don't want to blend up the ham. So I'll do this. And I'm going to do a nice little blend over here. And this will have just kind of a nice thicker base to it. And then I'm going to pour it in. So you see how we've got like a bisque-like texture. And we're going to pour this into our soup. And then I'm going to mix it in. And then I'll see if I want to do another round or if I like it just as it is. Because again, I don't want it to be super, super like decadently thick. I think I'll do a little bit more because we are adding some more potatoes in it. But this just gives you that both texture. And that's why I'm using 2 different potatoes, because Russet potatoes blend really smooth and aren't super thick, but give a lightness to it, but still gives you that rich texture. But the red potatoes are going to keep their shape really well in this soup. So blend this up, and then we'll get, this should be the last one. Nice and quick. There we go. But I don't need the whole base in here. Beautiful. Okay, slide this over here. Perfect. So you see how we just have that nice rich texture already? Gorgeous. Perfect. I'm going to slide my ladle out over here for just a second. We'll use that in a little bit. While we're waiting for that to simmer up, I'm going to grab my little skillet out here so we can toast up our pretzel rolls. And then we're going to add our mix-ins to our granola bars, press them out, and we'll finish off our soup. I'm going to let it simmer on low, though.
Oh, what kind of soup is that?
So this is going to be like a loaded baked potato soup. We're going to add in some green onions, cheese, and a little bit some toasted up potatoes and ham. Actually, I can get my potatoes and ham in here now, so those flavors can kind of go up in here. But this is red potatoes that we sauteed up, and then some chunks of ham. And we'll let them infuse into it. Right now in the soup, we have onions, garlic, potatoes, russet potatoes, and celery, and vegetable bouillon, and a little splash of cream. And those are gonna, see, those red potatoes are gonna add just a lovely texture to it. That's just a little bit different and just lovely. Okay, let's get a little bit of butter over here. Grab my, gotta finish putting away my dishes. I'll get a little room temperature butter, and I'm just gonna spread some on the inside of each one of my pretzel rolls so it can kind of toast up on here. There we go. And we'll just have them warm up and get those middle sides nice and toasted. And then we'll build up our little sandwich for them. And while those are toasting up, we'll use our hand. Let's get our mix-ins here. So I'm going to divide our base in half because I do half my granola bars like kids special and half the granola bars adult special, I will say, like in the sense of the kids are with mini M&Ms and chocolate chips, and the adults are with nuts and seeds and somewhat healthier. Okay, I always say I'm going to divide this evenly, and it never, one side when I press it down is way bigger than the other side. Okay. And get a little bit more over here. Okay. Now for this, I think we'll do one more over there. Pretty close? I feel like they're pretty close. Even?
Like it.
Okay, good. So we're in agreement that it's even. I'm going to do mini M&Ms. Mini M&Ms just are wonderful for this. And I actually think, I remember last time my kids saying they wanted all mini M&Ms this time. Normally I do half mini M&Ms and half chocolate chips. I'm going to do all mini M&Ms this time. So I'm going to do, because normally I do like 1/4 of a cup of each. I'm going to do a 1/2 a cup of all of this one, which is, there we go. Debating whether I should just dump the rest of the bag in. And then you're just going to mix it up. Mini M&Ms are great because they won't melt at all. Chocolate chips, when you mix them in there, because this batter is still warm, is going to melt. But they melt into it, and they cake like a little chocolate swirl in it. Beautiful. Now, when we press these together, that's what's going to hold it all together. Now, we're going to add in here some pumpkin seeds. like a good handful or so, probably around 1/4 of a cup. This is our kind of our favorite blend, cashews. We'll do a good amount. And I will say, it doesn't have to be honey roasted. I like the salted cashews with it because the sweet of the honey and the salted in here works really well. Where the cashews parts are probably our favorite. So I'm going to do closer to 1/3 cup in here. And then a little bit of slivered almonds. And it's a nice little bit of a texture to it that kind of breaks up. And then a little bit of white chocolate chips. They just add this little extra bit of sweetness to it that works really well with it. You need just about 1/4 of a cup. And then we're going to mix these in, and then they'll be ready to press them into our base. And as you can see, they're starting to get nice and firm, which means they're about ready to go in.
Do you have the recipe posted for these anywhere?
So I do have this recipe card available for our members, but we do post all of our lives on the link on our page. So you can always re-watch these and then watch along and make along with me. And we'll be adding these to our cookbook because they're a staple in our house, I should say. We eat these all the time for it. Now, when I'm pushing the granola bars, what I like to do is I use a nonstick pan, but I always spray it down with a little bit of olive oil or, like a nonstick spray so that when you're ready to flip it out, it pops right out. I'm going to put one base on one side, and then I'll do the other on the other side, and then we'll press them together. Now, the middle ones are like what I call the Frankenstein or the patchwork ones because you get like a mixture of both. Now, you could always do these in 2 separate pans, and you would use like an 8x8 pan, but I just do them in one big pan. Less dishes. Get all of this in here. Pour that all out. Don't want any of the goodness to go to waste. And then, actually, that one has a spatula. Pop this over. And then we'll put this one on this side. And actually move it with my hands. It might be a little bit easier. Now, in order for the granola bars to keep their form, you have to press them down firmly. And that is when you push them together, they're going to, it's just like Rice Krispie treats. They'll hold themselves together well. And that's what's going to keep them from being too fluffy. So I have put parchment paper over the top, and then you just smush them down. And you need to do it while they're still warm because you don't want them to completely set. Because once they've firmed up completely or cooled off, then they won't stick together anymore. And just push. And now if you want to melt chocolate and drizzle over the top, you definitely can. But I like these just the way they are. Here's our first round. And so sometimes you push up a little bit right here. Now I'm going to add just a couple sprinkles of M&Ms to the top over here so that my kids are like, there's no M&Ms in it. Sprinkles on top work well as sometimes you just have to, the kids see it. Here we go. And firm. Push these down. But just like with Rice Krispie treats, press them firm so that when you cut them and slice them, that they'll hold together. And those guys are done. They'll be about ready to eat in around 30 minutes is when that honey has completely, and that kind of sticky base has firmed up completely. Looks like we are just about ready on here. Perfect. I'm going to turn this off, slide this right over here, and let me wash my hands and let's build up our sandwiches. And then we're going to grate some cheese to add into our soup. And then we'll build up our sandwiches. So I've got some sharp cheddar cheese here. Let me grab a little bit of a plate here. Let's see. Get these nice and hot. I'm going to slide them and look at that. So there's our pretzel bases of them toasted up there, nice and lovely. I'm going to put some slices of the cheese on the bottom, kind of sandwich it in here. Now this is going to be more of like a colder ham and cheese sandwich, so not like a grilled cheese, but that toasted will start like warming it up and keep it lovely. And then we're going to add our slices of ham. Remember, when the cameraman wanted to eat one of these, somebody would have been out a slice of ham. And then a little bit of cheese on top. There we go. There. One more. And then we can put our toasted tops on here. And then to finish them off, what we're going to do, let me grab it because I left it right over here. We're going to take a little bit of our butter because there are pretzel rolls. I'm just going to rub it a little bit on top of each one to kind of make this nice little bit of our salt, our pretzel salt, stick on to our little pretzel rolls here. Whoops, there we go. A little dusting. I love salt, but not that much. Okay, while those sit and rest up, let's get our soup finished up and get our cheese grated for that because we'll finish that up and get some green onions because, of course, we need green onions in our soup because who doesn't love green onions on a loaded baked potato? Or if you're like me, who doesn't love green onions? Because I love green onions. I'm going to give these a quick rinse. And we're going to cut off things. And I always like to do my green onions in my soup at the very end because they have, if you put them in too soon, you'll lose all of their fresh flavor. You know, they cook off. They're a lovely finishing herb, but if you add them too soon, you won't have that nice flavor. There we go. I'm going to save a little bit to garnish, but the rest is going to go in here. We'll pop that in there. And I put my whiter parts in there so that they have a chance to kind of cook up a little bit. Beautiful. And then let's grate our cheese and then we'll be ready to serve up. Let me grab my cheese grater. I'm going to put a little bit in the soup and then of course we'll garnish on top. Just a nice little bit. I don't want to make it too heavy in the soup, but more, I find it's better like you put it on top so that you get bigger chunks of it in as you're eating it. And it also keeps it like just a better consistency, I find. Here. Get those. So this one I'm going to start sprinkling in our soup so it can start melting in. So putting in about a half a cup into the soup so that we have a little bit of that nice cheesy flavor in here. Because again, loaded baked potato. Wonderful. And then let me grate a little bit to garnish with. Perfect. And let's get ready to serve up here. Let me grab my ladle. And I'll grab a plate. I'll move my granola bars over here. Now again, you want your granola bars to cool off for about 30 minutes. before you cut into them. Otherwise, they won't have set, just like a Rice Krispie treat. Okay, let's get ready to serve up here. For lunch today, we have our homemade pretzel rolls with ham and cheese. Those are made with yeast, and you do a quick boil on them and we bake them up. And then we are going to serve them with our loaded baked potato soup. We used russet and red potatoes in here. We have chunks of ham, onions, celery, garlic, cheese, cream. We pureed part of the base to make this just really rich bisque thing, but then left those chunks of potato whole so you have both texture. We're going to sprinkle with some extra cheddar cheese and a few green onions. And then, of course, once our granola bars have set, we have our cashews, almond, and pumpkin seed granola bars with white chocolate, and then our mini M&M granola bars, both made with honey, brown sugar, and butter for just a wonderful and delicious little treat. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our loaded baked potato soup with our pretzel roll sandwiches and our granola bars, and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my Dutch ovens, my Hexclad pans, knives, cutting boards, all the different things that we use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.